Stugatz here. Whether you're into podcasts about ghastly crimes or hip-hop rhymes, there's always something new to discover on Spotify. With a mix of originals and many of the world's most popular shows, listening to podcasts on Spotify is easy. Just open the app, tap Browse, and dive into their growing library. Subscribe to your favorites, including our entire archive, so you'll never miss a show. You can also download podcasts for those moments when you're up in the air or going underground. Podcasts on Spotify are streaming right now. Go check them out today.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of getting 2 W's on the road or catching the home run ball without spilling your drink. Double boom. Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Give your thanks, kiddos. You're listening to the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugatz on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on the show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a holiday. It's the third Thursday in November, which means it's Turkey Day. You want to get in touch with me? 888-ESPN, 888-729-3776, or you can hit me up on Twitter at ESPN Radio and at Clinton Yates. It's the top of the hour, so if you're not familiar with how we operate around here, I'm going to tell you all the rules. If you come incorrect in my mentions, I will embarrass you in front of your friends and your family, and I will not apologize. Extra holiday disclaimer, since you are probably actively standing in front of your friends and your family right now or sitting in your vehicle, watch yourselves, Playboy. Right now, it's time for your Sports Center update. The Oklahoma City Thunder topped the Golden State Warriors 108-91 as Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook touched foreheads in a show of displeasure. The Thunder's Big Three outscored the Warriors' Big Four by 18 points, including 34 from the reigning NBA MVP, easy for me to say, Russell Westbrook. Sticking to the hardwood, the Celtics and their 16-game winning streak were snapped by the Heat. It was the team's longest win streak since a franchise record 19 straight in the 08-09 season. Also on the hardwood, LeBron James' 23 points in the fourth quarter lifted the Cavaliers past the Nets. King James had to leave the game in the third quarter to receive stitches on a facial laceration after colliding with Tyler Zeller. Experience-wise, for nearly a century, men have trusted Barbasol for a close, comfortable shave. Whether it's extra moisturizing with vitamin E or soothing aloe, all you have to do is sit back and bask in the glory of your close shave. You're looking good, America. You're shaving with Barbasol. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. We've been talking about the NFL all day long. Joining us right now, Coach Herm Edwards. How you doing, Coach?
I am well, my friend. How you doing?
I'm tremendous today. All right, I got the blood flow moving. I'm going to Mons after this.
Well, then you're good. You tell her I said hello, please.
I will do that. I know she's a fan, so I will do that. So let's start here, though. We're going to run down the games, schedule time-wise first. Vikes Lions. What am I expecting out of this game? Because as far as I'm concerned, this will probably actually be the best football matchup of the day with two teams that probably need it the most.
Yes, and if you think about Detroit, Detroit has put itself in position right now. If they can win this game, obviously they beat the Minnesota Vikings twice in this season. This was the last time the Vikings actually lost. It was against the Detroit Lions, 14-7, and then they went on a 6-game winning streak. When you look at both these teams, the thing that's kind of glaring, especially Minnesota, is that they've got a quarterback that basically has resurrected his career there. And every week it was questioned, is he the starting quarterback? He has proven he is a starting quarterback. There's no doubt about that. When you look on the other side of it, Matthew Stafford has a wonderful chance this season to really put this team on his back like he has done and carry them into the playoffs. I mean, he's a quarterback that we know this. In the fourth quarter, this is when he really thrives. And I think if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, look for him to pull out a victory. They've outscored their opponents 94-41. So this is a fourth quarter team. They play at home. It's Thanksgiving. They've beaten the Vikings once before. This, as you said, this should be a pretty good football game.
Let's move down the line to what I like to call the nap game. Chargers-Cowboys. Less of a sexy matchup. The Chargers are under 500, and the Cowboys just got blowed out big time by the Eagles last week in what was a very ugly game for that franchise. We talked to the ESPN Dallas reporter earlier in the day, Stefano Fusaro, and he basically said that without Zeke, you can't really, what are you really even doing in terms of how you expect that offense to run? But the offensive line is getting better. What are you expecting to see out of that Cowboys offense that we didn't see last week?
Well, they got to protect the quarterback, and how do you do that? You got to run the football. And when you look at the Chargers, the one thing that they're not very good at is defending the run. They're actually 32nd defending the run. So yeah, that's dead last. Last time there's not 33 teams. There's only 32. So with that being said, I think if you're Dallas, you have to find a way to run the ball and control the game. And if you can control the game, that you can control their pass rush. With that being said, I think Dak's going to have to move the pocket. They can't just drop back and throw against these two pass rushers they have in Bosa and obviously Irving. So it's one of those games, I think if you can run the football, they have a chance to win this football game. Look, the Chargers need to win this game as well. I mean, they put themselves in position now the last couple of weeks to win some games that when you look at the AFC West, I don't know if they catch Kansas City, but I do think this. In the AFC, if you can win 9 games, you're probably going to get in as a wild card team. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
The Chargers were halfway looking at this being a successful season, a month ago.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Things have, I'm going to say fallen apart, but things have gone poorly. I mean, do you think this is the team that can turn it around? Or
well, the Chargers, whether you like them or not, the one thing we know about the Chargers when they play, it is interesting in the fourth quarter. They're either chasing a lead or they're trying to hold a lead, right? Whatever happens, it comes down to the fourth quarter. Can they make a play to win? And that's kind of been their MO the last 2 years, really. You're talking about games with one score game in the fourth quarter. They've played more than anyone in the National Football League. The bad part is they've lost most of them.
Herm Edwards, ESPN NFL analyst, joins us here on the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gatz. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in here on a Thanksgiving day. Let me ask you about this, though. The Dak Prescott situation.
Yes.
He has regressed, but also, Zeke, offensive line's a problem. Do you think it's fair, and I asked this question earlier to Stefano Fusaro, who I referred to, and he said, do you think it's fair that he gets a full sort of pass on this season from a development standpoint overall?
Yeah, because when you think about it, we say he's digressed. Okay, let me ask you this question. Is Dez Bryant as good? Is Jason Witten as good when the runner's not in the backfield?
Yeah, good question. No,
is the offensive line as good when the runner's not in the backfield?
Right.
No. It's the runner. The runner basically gave everyone an identity because the runner, the whole offense flowed through the runner for the most part, right? This whole offensive system was the runner, right? He's a dynamic player. He's the most explosive player they had on the field. With that being said, defensively, when you played the Cowboys last year, even this year when he was playing, your number one concern is what? Stop the runner. What do we have to do? You're going to have to add an 8th element in the box to stop the runner. Guess what? Now, the other parts of this offense become a little bit better. Why? Because of the runner.
All right, fair enough. We'll switch gears.
Okay.
We'll move down to D.C.
Oh, boy.
We're down at FedEx Field. They're opening up the parking lot 8 hours early. That bad boy's open right now. I set the over-under on turkey fryer explosions at 3. I'm now at the under because I'm told that people ain't going to be showing up because they don't want to watch no 4-6 team play a 2-8 team, which I believe is probably true. But I'm going to start with last week. It was a devastating loss for the Skins. I mean, watching that, listen, I'm a fan of that team, and I watch week in and week out. I don't necessarily care that much outside of Sundays, but I was big mad when I woke up on Monday morning. What did you see out of that team in terms of how that fourth quarter collapsed and on through the overtime went?
Well, they're playing against Drew Brees, and I said this going into that game. I said the thing that scares you about the Saints right now, they have that same formula that they had when they went to a Super Bowl. They run the ball very well, and in the fourth quarter, when you're playing a guy like Drew Brees, all bets are off, especially at home. So I think they ran across a team that's got a heck of a winning streak going right now in the Saints, and that's always tough. When they've got it right now. That's kind of like that same run they had when they had the Super Bowl. Things just happened. They'd get some good bounces and some things would go their way. They know how to take advantage of that. I will say this about the quarterback, Kirk Cousins. He's probably smiling right now inside in the fact that however this season ends up, he's going to be sitting in good shape. Because if Washington does not want to determine he is our quarterback going forward, and if they're saying we got to get in the playoffs and win a playoff game for this guy to be the guy, he's probably going to go somewhere else. He's going to have some suitors, right? I look. I can sit here right now and close my eyes and go, I wonder what teams Denver? Oh no, really? Jacksonville? Oh, really? There's gonna see everybody saying San Francisco. I don't know about that because they got Garoppolo, but all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins is smiling. He is smiling.
What does GM Herm Edwards do in that situation?
Well, I thought they should have done this a while back. I mean, he's your guy. He is in great concert with the head coach. He has a great feel for the offense. I don't know. I don't know. Look, I understand. Sometimes because of who he is, and you know more than anybody, the money that these guys are asking for now, it can affect your whole team in the sense that when you pay a quarterback the money that he's probably going to get somewhere, whether it's in Washington or somewhere else, you disable your franchise in free agency. Your free agency is over. So you have to become very efficient in drafting players and developing players. And that's what the quarterback does to teams now. It hampers them. Look what happened to New Orleans when they signed Drew for all that money. For a couple of years, it took them a while before they could build their team back. Why? You can't go out in free agency. You're not getting those quality guys. You don't have the money. You have to actually draft well, which I kind of like. I would prefer you draft your players anyway and develop them. I've always felt that way. So that's what it forces teams to do.
All right. Last football question. The Giants who they're playing. So I ain't going to ask about them because they're sorry. But they beat the Chiefs.
They did.
Which was a weird win. But the Chiefs made a midweek acquisition move. Why did the Chiefs sign Darrelle Revis? What is that about?
Well, he knows the system. Bob had him up there when he was with the Jets. Now he's a year away from playing. How they use him, I think he's a part-time player probably early. Do they use him outside or in the slot? They've struggled. This Chief defense is if it doesn't take the ball away, it doesn't get off the field. They don't rush the passer extremely well. So they get a guy. Their secondary is a little bit beat up. They've got some young players playing back there. Beside Peters, he's their best player. They lost their safety. We know that. So they have corner issues and nickel issues. It'll be interesting to me where they use Revis. Do they use him inside as a nickel guy? Or do they keep him outside as a slot guy? It's going to be interesting how they use him. And this is what I would worry about. He's an older player, hadn't played in a year. I would worry about injury.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not playing like a position where he doesn't move. You're playing in the secondary, a reactionary position. And if he's not ready to go, he could end up getting hurt.
One word answer, Coach. Last thing I'll ask you, when it comes to cranberry sauce, homemade or canned?
Homemade. Stop it.
He's the coach, Herm Edwards, ESPN NFL analyst. Thank you, Herm.
You're welcome.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today and find out if we could save you hundreds on your car insurance. Coming up, going to recap a little NBA stuff. It was a big week in the association. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Dan Le Batard Show. It's Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, STUGOTZ, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Speaking of LeBron James, the Heat is not who he plays for anymore. He plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers is Tyronn Lue. Now, the relationship between these two has been a very interesting one over the course of their time there. Because Tyronn was basically handpicked by LeBron, in case you forgot that. They went through a couple people, and Brown was like, nah, that's what we got. So now, when they have any sort of, I don't want to say dispute, but, when grown folks talking to each other kind of situation, there's always a tendency to read it as, well, what does this mean? Where is this going as far as the two of them are concerned? Now, Brown last night got popped in the face. That wasn't good. But he came back and he scored a whole bunch of points. And they ended up winning the game. Let's hear what Tyronn Lue had to say about Brown's little run-in.
Do you think LeBron getting hit in the mouth or whatever kind of woke him up a little bit?
Good.
Yeah, it was good?
Yes.
Why?
Because he was messing around. And told him at halftime, you messing around. He got a little upset, and that's good. Get hit again.
Oh, it's that John Cena face meme. That gif. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that serious. But I do like what he had to say there. Tyronn Lue ain't afraid of LeBron James. And he shouldn't be. I actually genuinely love their relationship in terms of how they communicate with each other. It ain't all this tiptoeing around and all this other foolishness. They talk to each other like grown men. Let's hear LeBron responding on that from Ty Lue.
I mean, whatever T. Lue say goes. So, he knows how to challenge me sometimes. And, after the dunk, and then I came up and pulled up for a three. That was a bad shot. But they felt like the other one was a bad shot as well. The one in the corner against their big, and called a timeout after that point, and kind of took the life out of the team. So I know it starts and ends with me. So I got to I got to be better, which I was. I was a lot better in the second half.
And that's sort of the whole point here, is that as LeBron ages and these minutes start to add up, we're talking about a team that's out here doing all sorts of different things in terms of their travel schedule to make sure that everybody is rested. This is a legitimate part of how they're operating now, is taking into consideration LeBron's workload. He's not playing as many minutes. People are trying to act like that's a side factor. That's a main factor, but not just in terms of, who's making the decision, in terms of how it's going to affect the gameplay. That said, as LeBron's physical skills go, and I'm not saying they have gone, not remotely. Don't be taking that out of context, talking about I'm saying LeBron is washed. That is not remotely what I'm getting at. But what I'm saying is that as he ages in the NBA, his relationships with his coaches are going to become more important. Why? Because when you start to lose things or you are a step off physically, it affects the way you think about the game in terms of what you're able to execute. So for LeBron to be open enough to hear his coach say, you know what, that wasn't the best decision. And him saying, you know what, you're right, fam. My B, I'm going to do better next time. That's a healthy relationship, y'all. That's a very good thing if you're a Cavs fan. Because it means that not only is Lue saying what he needs to say for the purposes of the squad getting better, he's saying it for the purposes of trying to train LeBron to think a little bit differently about how he approaches the team game. It ain't always just going to be takeover mode, even if it was that last night. They have a very healthy relationship. They got a grown man relationship. Speaking of grown man relationships, though, that Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook situation, oh yeah, that's a real grown man situation. The Hands community wants to know where that relationship is going. Last night they got into it. Little forehead touching. Couple of look back. Dopey. There's a whole lot of that. Royce Young, ESPN NBA Thunder reporter, said on Izzy in Spain, yeah, they ain't boys no more.
The most Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook talk to each other is the little sequences of trash talk when they play against each other, because that's it. I mean, these two guys, there is no relationship between them anymore. And obviously that's kind of a sad thing. I mean, these guys spent a lot of time together, got very, very close, a lot of respect and admiration for the other. But, you can see it on the floor tonight, the way just Russell Westbrook reacts to any time he's around Durant. The guy just wants to annihilate him. And, Russell certainly holds a grudge.
AKA ain't no love lost. Oh, well. It was a great game last night. Thunder got their signature win of the season, put them back on the right track, and might kick the Warriors in a little bit of a gear in terms of what can happen if they don't have it all there on any particular night. Lastly, speaking of love lost, I got to give a shout out to my man Patrick Beverley. For those of you who watch me on Around the Horn, you know that one of the players that I dressed up as for Halloween was Patrick Beverley. I love Patrick Beverley. I am the president of the Patrick Beverley fan club. Patrick Beverley won a dunk contest in the Ukraine. You ain't know that. Patrick Beverley is my dude because Patrick Beverley plays basketball the way I enjoy watching people play basketball. Loud, in your face, and physical. No matter what. Very annoying. Very persistent. And very effective. But Patrick Beverley ain't playing no more this season. He's got a torn meniscus in his right knee and he's out for the year, which not only means the Clippers season is donezo, but that means we don't get to watch Patty Beverley anymore, man. I'm bummed out about that. That was right after he had just called out the team for needing to get meaner in order to be successful. And alas, his body let him down. Quite frankly, this is very personally devastating. Patrick Beverley, we're rooting for you, fam. NBA ain't the same without you. Coming up, my co-host on ESPN Radio's The Morning Roast, as well as co-panelist on ESPN's Around the Horn, as well as writer for ESPN The Magazine, Mina is going to join us. We'll talk about Turkey Day. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in on the Dan Lebertard Show with Stu Gatz on ESPN Radio.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Tailgate Terry. Without Tailgate Terry, you wouldn't have cold Bud Lights and 7-layer dip at every pregame. That's 56 layers per season. Just the right amount if you ask Terry. Tailgate Terry is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, 80 St. Louis, Missouri.
My name is Clinton Yates, if you don't know that. I write for The Undefeated. You can see me on Around the Horn during the week. And you can hear me on weekends starting in December with one Mina and Dominique Foxworth. Mina's also on Around the Horn. Mina also writes for ESPN The Magazine. And Mina also learned something new about Black Twitter on Thanksgiving last year as a result of her food choices. We're not even going to get into that, Mina. I'm not going to put you through that. But I am going to ask you off top what your feelings are on the cranberry sauce debate, because I have very strong feelings, but I need to know yours.
I wish I looked up yours before coming on, because I feel like this is a sneak attack. But I will say I'm okay with cranberry sauce. I like it. And mostly because I think turkey is kind of bland, so whatever spices up turkey is fine with me.
Are you canned or homemade?
Oh, well, I didn't really have the option of homemade in my house, so
thank you.
I don't have a preference.
Mina on the right side of the history, though, knowing full well that canned cranberry sauce is better. Sidebar, I didn't realize this game was kicking off at 12:30, and my fantasy team is in a situation right now. Anyway, that is a bit of a problem. Anyway, okay, so let me ask you this. Overall, we're going to go over some of these food takes. I saw some guys say that mac and cheese was a disaster. And my overall opinion on mac and cheese is that if mac and cheese is making or breaking your meal, you probably don't have a very good meal to begin with. I said that mac and cheese is sort of like the Volvo of Thanksgiving foods. Like, you know, there's some fly Volvos out there. But for the most part, they're safe cars. What are your thoughts on mac and cheese? That's fair. I dropped my sides take earlier, which is that all sides, I think, are pretty good. Turkey is by far inferior to the sides on Thanksgiving. You know, turkey is just to deliver the gravy and the cranberry sauce. But I like all Thanksgiving sides, to be honest. Like, I'll rank them, but they're all pretty good. Yeah, all right. We're talking with Mina Kimes, ESPN The Magazine reporter, Around the Horn panelist, my co-host on The Morning Roast on ESPN Radio. Now, the other thing I brought up is this before we get to football. the walking around ham. Are you familiar with what a walking around ham is?
No, a walking around ham?
Yes.
I do. It sounds like you.
No. That is very correct, but no. The purpose of a walking around ham is a ham for people to eat while they're walking around the house. Like if you got a big house, you don't want people interfering in the kitchen operation. So you have what's known as a walking around ham so people can pluck off a little bit of the ham and keep it moving around the area without bogging down what's going on in the kitchen. Do you have anything of the sort in your household or in your family?
No, that sounds heavy and a little burdensome, but I guess logistically it kind of makes sense.
All right. You're only doing Thanksgiving right. But anyway, I know you're out there on the West Coast. I know it's early. We just kicked off Vikes Lions. What are you looking for today in terms of football and in terms of the best storylines?
Well, we're starting with the game of the day right now, which, this is – I picked the Vikings. I think maybe all of my colleagues who do the expert picks on ESPN.com, go check them out, perhaps pick the Vikings. I can check that. They were just so impressive coming off of that. Oh, no, we got a couple Lions picks in there. Lewis Riddick, who's much better at picking games than me. So, but I will say, the Vikings is a question so far this season. We know the defense is good. We know they have, quite a few Pro Bowlers on that side of the ball. But can Case Keenum keep it up? Can he continue having this year that is so counter to what we know? Because he's not an unknown. He's not even like a Jared Goff where he's taking a step up. We knew who Case Keenum was. And then all of a sudden, he's a completely different guy. So I thought last week would be his comeuppance. I thought he would revert to his turnover throwing self, and he didn't. And Clinton, a lot of that has to do with, he's got two of the best weapons in the NFL and a line that appears to be playing at a much higher level than before.
What about the second game, the nap game, as I like to call it, which is a very East Coast biased way to refer to that game, but it's also not exactly the best sit down. It's Chargers, it's Cowboys. The Chargers at some point thought their season was going to take off. It sort of crumbled there, and the Cowboys obviously got dump trucked last week. What do you see in that game?
Yeah. This one was really divisive. I'm looking at the picks. I picked the Chargers, but the Chargers are a weird team because honestly this year and last year they've been better than their record. They have this comical or tragicomical, depending on who you're rooting for, tendency to lose in close games. But they have this amazing pass rush in Bosa and Ingram, obviously Phillip Rivers, tons of weapons. They should be good, but they find ways to lose. And then you've got the Cowboys, who, as you mentioned, are just heavily diminished right now. Tyron Smith is going to be playing the left tackle, and that should be huge for them. Sean Lee's still out. Obviously, Zeke's still out. So this is not the Cowboys at their full power, which is, I think, why everyone's so split on this game.
What do you think about Dak in terms of his development? I talked to Herm earlier in the show, and he said he's given him basically a full pass on development for the entire season, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'm with him. Man, I think he's fantastic. And it's funny, I feel like people now, and we see this all the time with quarterbacks, who are about the same age. We saw it with, Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck. And the rise of Carson Wentz, people seem to think means, Dak is declining. And that's just insane. Anyone who's watched games this year sees that he is incredible. At times he has carried this offense. If you just look at his statistics, I think he's second in QBR maybe. And true, Wentz is having a better season. But Dak Prescott is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. He's just struggled with some of those injuries and, not especially Tyron Smith, which is, I think, probably more impactful than the absence of Ezekiel Elliott.
Last thing I'm going to ask you, Mina. My boys.
Oh, no.
They got the night. That is exactly what Herm said when I brought it up. He said, oh, boy. You said, oh, no. And now I'm feeling terrible about this. They duffed out against the Saints in a game that made me so upset that look, you know how I feel about football. I am not normally angry beyond the day. I woke up upset on Monday because of that loss. Number one, what do you think about that in terms of the Saints? And number two, what do you think we're going to see tonight versus the Giants?
Well, I should hope they can beat the Giants. But, what bummed me out so much was the loss of Chris Thompson, because you wouldn't think like a situational running back would be one of, if not maybe the most important player in the offense. But I really felt that way about him. What a weapon he was. Just the packages they were able to run with him. He was so athletic, so talented. And to lose him, I think, could be really devastating for this offense, which is a shame because I think Kirk's having a great season. I think he's really, earning those future dollars. And it's disappointing to lose him. It'll be interesting. I'm more than this game because it really doesn't matter, right? And the Giants, are the Giants. I'm interested in seeing how the offense moves on without him.
I'm going to have to watch that game. I just have to.
I'm going to watch it, of course.
I know.
Who you got?
The best 4-6 team in the league is the best 4-6 team in the league. I got to think they're going to win because if they don't, the few people that showed up for that game are going to burn the place down. I mean, come on. If you can't win that game, you have to mail in the rest of the season, and you already sort of have anyway, and that's a whole other discussion. But, yeah, I think the Skins are going to win. So
is Kirk back next year, Clinton? Tell me, yes or no?
Transition tag. Blocker!
Oh!
I didn't know I had that. Anyway, that's all I got. She's Mina Kimes. You can see her on Around the Horn. You can hear her on ESPN Radio with me and Dominique Foxworth on the Morning Roast, and you can read her work in ESPN, the magazine. Mina, say what up to Chief Ike and Lenny and the rest of your family for me, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
See you soon, bud.
No doubt. All right. For those of you who don't know, the show's coming back December 30th. Playboy. So you can hear me yelling at people on Sundays before y'all watch football. I'm very excited about that. Coming up, going to wrap up these poll questions so I can get to my mother's house and eat some food. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio. Got a couple polls we got to wrap up. We did 3 today. It's been a fun show. But first, let me tell you who was on the program. We talked to John Keim, ESPN NFL Nation Skins reporter, about the matchup they've got this evening versus the New York Football Giants. I was asking him about the parking lots, which are open right now as we speak. So if you're listening there, thank you. Don't set a turkey fryer on fire. He said he's not even getting there till 5 o'clock, so we can't imagine there's that many people there now. But who knows? Skins Nation has a lot of people who are pretty wild about that team, even if they're 4-6. Then we talked to Stefano Fasaro, ESPN Dallas reporter, discussing the game that's happening at 4:30, Cowboys-Chargers. Talked about Jerry Jones, where the fan base is as a result of that, and basically how without that offensive line being intact and without Ezekiel Elliott, they never really did get out of the chute this season. Understandable. Then, of course, the coach Herm Edwards joined us, ESPN NFL analyst. We went sort of around the league at games today, and he said he thinks Kirk Cousins made himself a whole lot of money over the course of this season, that he's going to be a very wanted man in the offseason. I agree with him. And then Mina Kimes joined us. You know her from the Nickel Package podcast. You know her from ESPN Radio's The Morning Roast, which comes back December 30th with me, her, and Dominique Foxworth. And she writes for ESPN the magazine as well as appears on Around the Horn. So Mina's all over the place. I want to thank her for joining us as well. But we got some polls to get to. Bubba, give me some replies.
All right. Who would win in an on-court fistfight? Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook? 85% say Russell Westbrook.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, Russell is just a little bit more feisty. But again, I think people are underestimating the reach element of Kevin Durant. Of course, we're talking about this because they got into it a little bit on the court last night. Of course, I don't want to see two dudes fighting, but you never know. And as a representative of the hands community, I'd like to make sure my constituents are served. What's the next one, Bubba?
Which cranberry sauce do you prefer? Canned or homemade?
Yeah.
54% are going canned.
Ooh. The majority rules in this situation, ladies and gentlemen. And this is important because of all of the guests I asked about this live, Mina is the only one who said she didn't have a preference. Everybody else said homemade. Canned is the way to go. Plain and simple. Last one, Bubba.
Does your family have a walking around ham on Thanksgiving? Yes, no, or a what ham? And a what ham wins with 70%.
70%. That is hilarious. If you're listening last segment, I explained what a walking around ham is. On Thanksgiving, thank you, Bubba, by the way. On Thanksgiving, you got a lot of people in the house. You got a lot going on in the kitchen. You can't just have Bama's walking in and out talking about, let me get a snack here, let me get a snack there. You got to have something to keep people at bay. And I'm not just talking about, nuts in a bowl on the table. You got to have a little something. That's what a walking around ham is for. Because just because you're not cooking doesn't mean you're not doing other things either. You might need some sustenance. You might be playing around, doing a little roughhousing. You might be putting together a TV or something. Some people don't like to see people just sitting around not working around the house while the food's getting done. Depends on what your household is. Good walking around ham will keep a lot of people at peace. That bad boy is required. Shoot. My mom texted me. It's just going to be me and her. She said it's a bring your own walking around ham kind of situation. But that's not a walking around ham circumstance. There are different places where you apply that. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Hope everybody has a safe and festive Thanksgiving. Tomorrow I'm back. And y'all know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow's Black Friday. Race talk, party time, excellent. I got a piece coming out tomorrow for The Undefeated, where I write top 25 blackest sports moments of 2017. Oh, yeah. We're doing it, folks. While y'all are sitting around buying your stuff up on Amazon or rolling around at the ball, hopefully trying not to get trampled at 5 in the morning, we're going to go through it. We're going to break it down. Y'all thought y'all had some LeVar Ball talk today. Black Friday, Playboy? What you think this is? We're going to discuss the year in blackness in America. Perhaps some global situations might have gotten in there, but it'll be a fun one. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for The Undefeated. I'm also on Around the Horn. And I host the weekend show on ESPN Radio with Mina and Dominic Foxworth. Want to thank Dan. Want to thank Stu Gotts. Want to thank everybody else. I'm back tomorrow, all right, kiddos? Be friendly to your family.